You need to get a real job if you want people to take you seriously, Ethan. My wife said those words while standing in our kitchen, and what surprised me most was not the sentence itself. It was the confidence behind it. Rachel looked at me like she had already decided who I was. She saw a man working quietly from home, driving an older truck, and living a simple life in our suburban neighborhood outside Austin, Texas. In her mind, that meant I had stopped growing. What she did not know was that the quiet life she judged was the exact life I had chosen. My name is Ethan Walker. I am 46 years old, and for most people who met me, I probably seemed ordinary. I was not the man wearing expensive watches at business events. I was not the person posting pictures from luxury resorts or talking about million-dollar deals. I preferred early mornings, coffee at my kitchen table, and working without needing anyone to notice. But Rachel started seeing that as a weakness. Years earlier, she saw something completely different in me. When we first met, we were not focused on status or appearances. We were two people trying to build something together. We shared a small apartment, cooked simple meals, and talked about a future that felt exciting because we were creating it ourselves. Rachel used to tell me she admired how calm I was. She said I was someone who did not need attention to prove my worth. She liked that I could solve problems without making everything about myself. Back then, I was the person she trusted when life felt uncertain. But over time, her world changed. Rachel built a successful career in the corporate world. She became a respected executive at a technology company, surrounded by people who measured success through titles, expensive homes, and professional achievements. I was proud of her. I supported every step she took because I believed her success was something we shared. But somewhere along the way she looked at me changed. She started asking questions about my career. She started comparing our lifestyle to the lives of people around her. She noticed what I did not own instead of what I had built. The strange part was that I never wanted to impress her with money. I wanted her to understand my character. For years, I had quietly built relationships, studied investments, and created opportunities that most people never knew existed. I was involved in business decisions that required patience and experience, but I kept that part of my life private. Not because I was hiding something shameful, but because I never wanted money to become the reason someone respected me. I wanted to believe that the person beside me cared about who I was before knowing what I had achieved. That night in the kitchen, Rachel told me I needed to find a real job. She believed my work was not important because it did not look impressive from the outside. I listened carefully. I did not argue. I did not try to explain everything I had built. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is let someone believe a version of you that is not true. But I knew something Rachel did not know. The world she respected so much was closer to me than she could imagine. And the next morning, one phone call would reveal that the husband she underestimated was connected to the biggest opportunity her company had ever needed. The morning after Rachel told me to get a real job, I woke up before my alarm went off. That was something I had done for years. I liked quiet mornings because they gave me time to think before the rest of the world became busy. I walked into the kitchen, made my coffee, and looked around the same room where Rachel and I had spent so many years building our life together. The wooden table near the window was still there. The pictures on the wall were still there. The house looked exactly the same, but something inside me had changed. I started wondering when Rachel stopped seeing the person I was and started seeing only what she thought I lacked. The truth was, my life was never as simple as it appeared. I had always believed that real success did not need to announce itself. I learned that lesson from my father, who spent his entire life building things quietly. He used to tell me that the strongest parts of a structure are usually the parts nobody notices. That idea stayed with me. When I started building my own career, I followed the same principle. I did not chase attention. I did not care about being recognized in a room full of strangers. I cared about making smart decisions and creating something that could last. Years before Rachel questioned what I did for a living, I had already started building a different path. I studied markets, learned from experienced investors, and developed relationships with people who valued patience and long-term thinking. I was not interested in quick success or showing people a lifestyle they could admire. I wanted stability. I wanted options. I wanted the freedom to make decisions without depending on anyone else's approval. Over time, those choices created opportunities one never expected. I became involved in private investments and worked with companies that were growing in competitive industries. I was not the person standing on a stage giving speeches. I was usually the person behind the scenes reviewing plans, asking questions, and deciding whether an opportunity had real potential. That was the role I preferred. Rachel knew I worked with business opportunities, but she never understood the scale of it. She assumed that because I worked differently from her, I was somehow behind her. She saw her corporate office, her executive title, and the people around her celebrating success, and she believed that was the only definition that mattered. I never corrected her because I wanted our relationship to be built on something stronger than financial achievements. But lately, I noticed the difference between the way she talked about her world and the way she talked about mine. Her career was a source of pride. My work was something she questioned. I remember one evening when she asked why I still drove my older truck instead of buying something more impressive. She said people noticed those things. I told her I did not need a vehicle to prove what I had accomplished. She smiled and said I did not understand how the world worked anymore. At the time, I let the comment pass. But looking back, I realized we were not simply disagreeing about money or lifestyle. We were seeing success in completely different ways. Rachel believed success was something people should see. I believed success was something people should feel through the life they created. And while she was focused on the things I did not show, she never noticed the things I had quietly built. She never asked the right questions. She never looked deeper. But soon, circumstances would force her to discover that the man she thought needed to change was actually the person who had already built something far greater than she imagined. When I think about the years before everything changed, I realized the biggest distance between Rachel and me did not happen because of one argument or one decision. It happened slowly, through small moments that we both ignored. We were once the kind of couple who celebrated simple victories. When we first got married, we did not have much, but we were excited about building something together. I remember our first apartment in Texas. The kitchen was small, the furniture was basic, and we had to carefully plan every expense. But we were happy because every step forward felt like something we created together. Rachel used to appreciate the things about me that later became the things she questioned. She liked that I stayed calm under pressure. She liked that I thought before making decisions. She liked that I was not interested in impressing people I barely knew. Back then, she told me those qualities made her feel secure. She said she wanted a partner who was dependable, someone who would be there when life became difficult. I believed that was the foundation of our marriage. But success introduced Rachel to a different world. As her career grew, so did her circle of influence. She started spending more time around executives, investors, and people who measured achievement through visible signs of success. Their conversations were about expensive homes, exclusive events, and opportunities worth millions of dollars. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. I watched her work hard, prepare for important meetings, and take on responsibilities that challenged her. I wanted her to succeed because I believed her accomplishments were part of our shared journey. But slowly, something changed. The confidence that once inspired me started becoming a comparison between us. Rachel began looking at our life through the eyes of the people around her. Our home was comfortable, but it was not the kind of property her colleagues talked about. My truck was reliable, but it was not a luxury vehicle. My work was meaningful, but it did not come with a title displayed on a glass office door. Little comments started appearing in everyday conversations. She would mention how successful certain people seemed. She would talk about the lifestyles they created and wonder why we were not moving in the same direction. I understood wanting growth. I understood wanting more from life. There was nothing wrong with ambition. The problem was that Rachel started believing the things she could see were the only things that mattered. She did not see the late nights I spent reviewing opportunities. She did not see the years I spent learning, studying, and building relationships. She did not see the decisions I made quietly because I believed protecting our future was more important than receiving recognition. One evening, she asked me why I seemed comfortable staying where I was while everyone else was moving ahead. I looked at her and realized we were no longer talking about the same thing. She thought I was standing still. I knew I was building carefully. That difference became the invisible wall between us. I never wanted Rachel to admire me because of money or achievements. I wanted her to respect the person she had chosen to build a life with. But somewhere along the way, she began measuring my worth by things I never cared about. What she did not know was that while she was watching the outside of my life, something much bigger was happening behind the scenes. A decision was approaching that would connect my quiet world with the company she was so proud to represent. For years, Rachel believed she understood my life. She saw the house we lived in, the truck I drove, and the way I spent my days, and she created a simple explanation. In her mind, I was a man who had stopped chasing success. She never considered that maybe I was simply chasing a different kind of success. The truth was, my work had always existed in a world she rarely saw. While she built her career in front of an audience, I built mine quietly through relationships, careful decisions, and patience. I never wanted to become someone who measured life by numbers on a screen or the reaction of people in a room. I wanted freedom. I wanted security. I wanted the ability to make choices without depending on anyone else. That mindset led me into private investments years earlier. It started with small opportunities and conversations with people who valued long-term thinking. I spent countless evenings studying industries, reviewing business plans, and learning from people who had already experienced success and failure. I was never interested in shortcuts. I knew that anything worth building required time. Slowly, those decisions created opportunities that changed my financial future. I became involved with growing companies and strategic investments, but I kept my role private. I was not the person giving interviews or appearing at business events. I was the person reviewing possibilities behind closed doors, deciding which ideas had real potential and which ones were based only on excitement. That was the work I enjoyed. Rachel knew I was financially stable, but she never understood how much I had built. She assumed my choices represented my limitations. She thought that because I did not spend money like the executives she knew, I could not compete with them. What she did not realize was that I had intentionally chosen a different path. I could have purchased expensive cars, moved into a larger home, and created an image that matched the people around her. But I never wanted our marriage to become a competition. I never wanted Rachel to look at me differently because of what I owned. I wanted her to look at me differently because of who I was. One afternoon, while I was reviewing documents in my home office, I received a call from an old business contact. His name was Mark Reynolds, and we had worked together on several investment opportunities over the years. He told me there was an important development involving a technology company that had been searching for a major strategic partner. I listened carefully as he explained the details. The company had strong potential, talented employees, and a valuable product, but they needed the right agreement to move forward. Then he mentioned the company name. It was Rachel's company. For a moment, I sat quietly at my desk. The connection was unexpected, but it also made perfect sense. The world Rachel believed was far away from me had been closer than she ever imagined. I asked Mark for all the information before making any decision. I wanted to understand the situation completely. This was not about proving Rachel wrong. It was not about showing anyone what I had. Business decisions required responsibility, and emotions could not be allowed to control them. That evening, Rachel came home and talked about challenges at work. She mentioned meetings with executives, concerns about future plans, and pressure from leadership. I listened as she described the situation without realizing that the solution she needed was connected to the person she had told to find a real job. I did not tell her everything that night. I wanted to be certain before changing the way she saw me forever. Because once the truth came out, there would be no going back to the way things were before. The days after I learned about Rachel's company situation were filled with careful decisions. I did not rush because I understood something important about business. A good opportunity was not only about having the ability to help. It was about knowing whether helping was the right choice. I spent several mornings reviewing reports, studying the company's position, and speaking with people who understood the challenges better than I did. The more information I gathered, the clearer the situation became. Rachel's company was not failing because the people there lacked talent. In fact, that was the reason the decision mattered so much. The company had smart employees, strong ideas, and a product with real potential. The problem was that growth had moved faster than their financial structure could support. They needed a partner who understood both opportunity and responsibility. That was exactly the type of situation I had spent years preparing for. But this time, the decision carried a personal weight. The company was connected to Rachel, the same company where she built her reputation, the same place where she spent years proving herself. I thought about all the times she came home excited about a new project or a successful meeting. I remembered how proud she was when she earned more responsibility. I never wanted to take that away from her. Her achievements were real. Her hard work was real. The difference was that she had started believing my achievements were not. One evening, Rachel came home later than usual. She placed her laptop on the kitchen counter and sat down across from me. I immediately noticed something different in her expression. She was still confident, but there was uncertainty underneath it. She told me that leadership was looking for a major investor because the company needed additional support for its next stage of growth. She talked about the pressure everyone was feeling and how important the next few decisions would be. I listened quietly. For years, Rachel had talked about her company as a place full of powerful people and important opportunities. Now she was describing a situation where the right person could change everything. I asked her what kind of partner they were looking for. She explained that they needed someone who understood the industry, believed in the company's future, and was willing to make a serious commitment. I looked at her and realized she still had no idea how close the answer was. She did not know that the person she believed needed a different career path was already connected to the world she respected. She did not know that the quiet husband sitting across from her had spent years preparing for opportunities exactly like this. But I also knew this moment was bigger than business. If I stepped forward, I needed to understand what it would mean for our relationship. Would Rachel finally see me as the person I had always been, or would she only see the value of what I could provide? That question mattered more to me than any agreement or financial decision. The next step would reveal more than the future of her company. It would reveal whether Rachel truly understood the man she had spent years standing beside. I had never wanted to prove her wrong. I had only wanted to be valued for who I was. Now, I had to decide whether the truth was finally ready to be seen. The morning I decided to step closer to Rachel's company situation, I knew everything was about to change. Not because of the business opportunity, but because of what it represented. For years, I had kept my professional life separate from my personal life. I believed that a marriage should be built on trust, not on the size of a bank account or the influence someone carried in the business world. But now those two worlds were about to meet. I spent the next few days preparing carefully. I reviewed every detail of the potential agreement, spoke with my advisors, and examined the company's plans from every possible angle. I wanted to be certain that my decision was based on facts, not emotions. Helping Rachel's company only because she was my wife would have been irresponsible. Refusing to help because of what she said in the past would have been equally wrong. I had built my career by making decisions based on long-term value, and I was not going to change that now. When I finally agreed to attend the first meeting, I did not tell Rachel everything. I simply told her that I knew someone who might be interested in discussing the opportunity. She looked surprised. For years, she had believed my world was separate from hers. She believed I worked on small projects from home while she operated in a much larger environment. She never imagined that my name could open the same doors she spent years trying to enter. The meeting was scheduled at her company's headquarters in downtown Austin. As I walked through the modern lobby, I noticed the energy of the place. Employees moved quickly, executives discussed plans, and everyone seemed focused on the future. Rachel met me near the conference room. She gave me a curious look, almost as if she was trying to understand why I seemed so comfortable in a place she thought I did not belong. Inside the room, several executives were waiting, including Richard Collins, the company's chief executive officer. Richard greeted me professionally, but I could tell he expected to meet a typical investor. Someone with a large team, a public reputation, and an obvious display of success. Instead, he met someone who preferred listening before speaking. During the meeting, I asked about their strategy, their challenges, and their long-term goals. I was not interested in impressive presentations without strong foundations. I wanted to know how the company planned to grow responsibly and how they intended to protect the people who had helped build it. Slowly, the atmosphere changed. The executives realized I was not there simply to provide funding. I understood the decisions they were facing. I understood the risks. I understood what it took to build something valuable. Rachel watched quietly from across the table. I could see questions forming in her mind. She was starting to realize that the husband she thought needed to change was someone she had never fully understood. After the meeting ended, she stopped me before I left. She asked why I had never told her about this side of my life. I looked at her and answered honestly. I told her I never wanted my achievements to become the reason she respected me. I wanted her to respect me before knowing any of it existed. For a moment, she had no response. Because deep down, she knew the truth. She had spent years judging the parts of my life she could see while ignoring everything she could not. And now, for the first time, she was beginning to see the complete picture. The days following that first meeting felt different. not because I had changed, but because people around me had started seeing a different version of me. For years, I had been the quiet person in the background, the one who listened more than he spoke. Suddenly, I was sitting at tables where decisions worth millions of dollars were being discussed, and everyone wanted to understand how I had been connected to their world without them knowing. But for me, nothing had changed. I was still Ethan Walker. I still enjoyed quiet mornings, simple routines, and the same home where Rachel and I had built our life together. The difference was that the assumptions people made about me were beginning to disappear. The most difficult part was watching Rachel process everything. She was not angry. She was not defensive. She was simply trying to understand how she could have been so wrong about someone she had known for so many years. After the meeting, we sat in my truck outside the company building for a few minutes. It was the same truck she had once viewed as a symbol that I was not moving forward. I looked at the building in front of us and then looked at her. Rachel finally asked the question she had been carrying since the meeting. She asked why I never told her about my investments, my business relationships, or the opportunities one had built over the years. I understood why she asked. From her perspective, it probably felt like I had kept an important part of myself hidden. But I explained that I was not hiding success. I was protecting something I believed was more important. I never wanted our relationship to become a transaction. I never wanted her to look at me differently because of a business title, a financial achievement, or a number attached to my name. I wanted her to choose me because of the person I was when nobody else was watching. Rachel looked out the window quietly. She remembered the years when we had almost nothing and still felt like we had everything. She remembered the person I was before she started comparing our life to the lives of people around her. For the first time, she saw that the qualities she once loved about me were the same qualities that helped me build everything I had. Patience, discipline, the ability to think long-term. Those things had never disappeared. She had simply stopped noticing them. Back at the company, Richard Collins and his leadership team continued reviewing the potential agreement. They began asking different questions. They were no longer focused only on what I could provide financially. They wanted to understand my approach, my experience, and why I believed their company had value. I explained that a successful business was not built only through money. It was built through good decisions, strong people, and the ability to adapt when circumstances changed. Richard respected that perspective because he understood that the company needed more than a financial solution. It needed a partner who believed in its future. Rachel watched those conversations carefully. The person she once described as someone who needed a different career path was now the person helping guide important decisions about her company's future. But what mattered most to me was not the change in how others saw me. It was the change in how I saw myself. I no longer felt the need to explain my choices or defend my lifestyle. I knew the truth about the life I had built. And soon, everyone else would understand that the greatest value is often found in the things people never take the time to see. The weeks that followed the meeting with Rachel's company became a period of reflection for everyone involved. The business discussions continued, but something more important was happening beneath the surface. People were beginning to understand that the agreement was never just about financial support. It was about trust, responsibility, and the kind of decisions that determine whether a company survives difficult moments. I continued reviewing every detail with Richard and his team. I asked questions about their plans, their employees, and the direction they wanted to take. I wanted to know that the company had more than potential. I wanted to know that the people leading it understood the importance of building something that could last. Richard eventually told me that my approach was different from other investors they had spoken with. He said most people focused only on numbers and immediate results, but I focused on the foundation. I appreciated the comment, but I knew exactly why I thought that way. I had spent years building my own success by understanding that short-term attention disappears, but strong decisions create lasting results. Rachel saw that side of me more clearly than ever before. She watched me work with her company's leadership team, and she realized the qualities she once overlooked were the same qualities that made the difference. The patience she once called being too comfortable was actually discipline. The quiet nature she once misunderstood was actually confidence. The simple lifestyle she once judged was a choice, not a limitation. One evening, after another long day of meetings, Rachel and I sat at our kitchen table. It was the same place where we had shared plans and dreams when we were younger. She looked around the room and said something that stayed with me. She said she finally understood that she had been searching for success everywhere except in the person who had been beside her all along. I listened carefully because I knew this conversation mattered. But I also knew that understanding something does not automatically repair everything. Trust is not rebuilt through one emotional moment. It is rebuilt through consistent actions over time. I told Rachel that the hardest part was never the comments about my career. It was feeling like the person I loved had stopped seeing me clearly. She admitted that she had become so focused on the image of success that she forgot what success was supposed to create. She had chased recognition, but she had overlooked peace. She had wanted a lifestyle that impressed others, but she forgot the value of a life that felt meaningful. At the company, the final decisions about the agreement moved forward. I had the ability to influence the future of the business, but I never wanted that power to become a way to make anyone feel small. I did not want revenge. I wanted responsibility. That was the difference between who I was and the person Rachel once believed I needed to become. Money could open doors. Experience could solve problems. But neither could create respect between two people. That had to come from something deeper. As the agreement moved closer to completion, I realized the biggest change was not that Rachel finally understood what I had built. The biggest change was that I no longer needed anyone to understand it for me to believe in myself. I had spent years creating a life based on my values. And now, for the first time, the people around me were finally seeing what had always been there. Months after everything changed, I found myself sitting in the same kitchen where this entire journey began. The sunlight came through the windows, the coffee was on the table, and the quiet of the morning felt familiar. But I was not the same person I was before. Not because my circumstances had changed, but because my perspective had changed. For years, I believed that if I worked hard enough and built something meaningful, the people closest to me would naturally understand. I believed that actions spoke louder than words. But I learned something important. Sometimes people only see the version of you they expect to see. They create a story about your life based on limited information, and no amount of patience can force them to look deeper until they are ready. The agreement with Rachel's company was completed successfully. The business gained the stability it needed, and the leadership team moved forward with a clearer direction. Richard became someone I respected because he understood that success was not only about financial results. It was about making responsible choices and protecting the people connected to those choices. He once told me that the company was fortunate to find a partner who cared about more than numbers. I appreciated that, but I knew the real lesson was much bigger than a business decision. It was about understanding what truly matters. Rachel and I continued working through our relationship. Some things became easier, while others required patience. We did not pretend the past never happened. We did not ignore the moments when we failed to understand each other. Instead, we learned to have honest conversations that we avoided for years. Rachel admitted that she had become focused on the image of success because she was afraid of falling behind. She spent so much time looking at what other people had that she stopped appreciating what was already in front of her. She realized that she had judged my life based on what she could see instead of asking about everything she could not see. I told her that I also learned something. I learned that keeping everything private is not always the best choice. While I never wanted money to define me, I understood that communication mattered. A strong relationship requires two people who are willing to be open, not two people who simply assume they know each other. Looking back, the most important part of the experience was not the business deal. It was not the moment people discovered my professional success. It was the moment I stopped needing anyone else's approval to know my own value. I was never trying to prove that I was better than anyone. I was never trying to make Rachel regret what she said. I only wanted to live according to the principles that guided me from the beginning. Work hard. Stay patient. Make thoughtful decisions. Treat people with respect. Real success is not measured by how many people notice you. It is measured by the life you create when nobody is watching. Today, I still drive my old truck. I still enjoy quiet mornings and simple routines. The difference is that I no longer wonder if those choices make me seem less successful. I know who I am. I know what I have built. And I know that the greatest achievement in life is not proving someone else wrong. It is becoming so confident in your own worth that you no longer need to prove anything at all.